All right, folks. This is going to serve as my intro to the book Gold, Dollars, and Power, to the book study. And I just want to tell the story of how I came across this book completely by accident. And I want to thank Google and Google search for actually hipping me to Gold, Dollars, and Power. It was right after, I think it was Kramer's meltdown, and we were discussing the financial crisis and the banking crisis that was about to be discovered. A lot of that stuff had been kept secret, really, unless you knew what you were doing and knew what to read, and you could read between the lines. You would have been able to decipher. But most people, and I was one of those people, was uneducated in how banks actually work. I knew some of it, because you have to know some of it. If you're going to trade, you got to know some of it. But there's a lot of coded language, and there's a lot of, how can I say, knowledge that, say, economists, the trained economists and trained financiers have that we don't. And one of those things was how the financial architecture works. So I was doing research on gold. And the first book I read on it was the one they tell everybody to start with in investing in gold coins, which gave me a start, but it didn't answer a lot of what I wanted to hear. I wanted to know. It gave me an overview, but it really didn't tell me how banks actually worked. And then there was something that I read, I can't remember exactly what it was, that talked about the Germans, especially right before World War II. Talk about the German question, what's going to happen with Germany. I read that, I read that, and then there was something called the German question. So I went to my trusty Google search and put in, the German question. It came back with a whole bunch of searches, but it came back with this odd book called Gold, Dollars, and Power by Francis, or what he calls himself now, Frank Gavin. And the section that I saw, I can't remember exactly what the section it actually pointed me to, was Germany after World War II, especially what to do with the Germans, West Germans after World War II. The East Germans had already been ported across, to Russia. It was their problem. But West Germany, they didn't want the Germans to get riled up again and start fighting with the rest of Europe. So there was always a question about what to do with Germans. But it pointed me to this book called Gold, Dollars, and Power. And the first portion I read so intrigued me that I actually spent the $33 to actually buy this book, which, for me, as a collector, let's put it for a better term, $33 for a book is a lot of money, especially on Amazon, when you can buy one for, you can buy a good used book for like $5 to $10. So $33 was a lot of money, but I put $33 down for this 250-page book. And as I started the opening section, when he talked about Goldfinger, it actually blew my mind. Just the opening section. When you read the opening introduction, and it blows your mind, is that, this is what I need to know to understand gold and how gold works and that kind of stuff. So it was about the Bretton Woods system, how it was put together and how it was managed, which is probably more important than how the system works, how it's managed and why certain decisions were actually made. And that's what the book, reading through the book, from chapter by chapter, how they put the doggone thing together, the institutions they put in to manage it, and then how the system was actually manipulated to actually make it function, and then eventually why they went off the gold standard. And a lot of what I heard about why Nixon went off the gold standard was untrue. Was absolutely untrue. So anybody that tells me they know why Nixon took everybody off the gold standard has no idea what they're talking about, which is probably why after, people like me got a hold of Gold, Dollars, and Power, started going through it and started getting knowledge and spreading the word about this book. They took Dr. Gavin from the University of Texas, where he was an unknown professor, and actually gave him his own, basically gave him his own little think tank. And then eventually they put him at MIT. And there's only been two recorded public talks that Gavin has ever given that I can find. Very hard to find. Very hard to find anything of him speaking. Hell, the first time it was very hard to find what he even looked like, because the Council of Foreign Relations took this dude and hid him away. So that tells me that this is a book that's supposed to be hidden and not a lot of people are supposed to know about. I'm not even supposed to tell you about this book, because this was actually done as a blueprint blueprint history about what the Bretton Woods system was, the monetary system is that we're actually working with, why and how it evolved, and why we are where we are. There's another book that is called Global Imperialism, that is actually what the Nixon administration used to actually get off the gold standard, or an impetus to get off the gold standard, whether they actually could do it or not. But we're going to deal with Gold, Dollars, and Power right now. So I propose to actually go through this, since I've talked about this book so many times, and basically black folks is hard-headed and they won't read it. So I'm actually going to do a book study on Gold, Dollars, and Power. Since it's a shorter book, it's much shorter than Tragedy and Hope, much shorter. But this 250-page book, after we go through it, you will basically understand the Bretton Woods system, a lot of terms that are used, a lot of things that went on, and a lot of things that influence historical events that we've seen, and even influence the things that go on today. With that, I'm going to cut this introduction short. And we're going to do our first book study of Gold, Dollars, and Power.